Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week, as he does most weeks, is KC Onyebu.
Well, howdy.
Boy, howdy. How are you?
I'm doing good. Deep in the heart of Texas, recording from San Antonio this week.
All right. Well, I am across the pond. I am recording from Madrid in Spain, so I should be like, hola, ¿cómo estás?
Nailed it. Muy bien, ¿y tú?
That's about all the Spanish I got, man.
Ay, qué lástima.
But you know what? I'm glad that we found a way to do the podcast. So given the fact that you are not in your home base and I am not in my home base, we are going to do what is going to be an annotated version of Combat Sports Talk episode 38, but we're still going to have a little bit of fun. You ready?
Let's do this. Let's have a Dennis Bermudez-sized show today.
Oh, so a real small show, huh?
Muy pequeño.
All right. I'm assuming that's Spanish for small. So let's go. Let's just hop right into it. There were two fights this weekend, one for Bellator and one for the UFC. So you know how we have to do it. We do it with the official decision. The official decision. This is the official decision where we look at the results from the fights on Saturday, I guess Friday and Saturday night. We'll start off with the Bellator coming to you from Pechanga Resort and Casino in Temecula, California. It was funny when I was first reading it. I was saying Temecula, and I was like, what is Temecula?
Yeah. I think that means something a little different when you say it like that.
So fortunately, I was able to get the pronunciation correct because you know that there's a much more difficult thing to say coming up later in this segment.
Indeed.
So for Bellator, Jake Smith defeated Steve Cozzola by knockout in round one. Kendall Grove was defeated via split decision by AJ Matthews. Saad Awad defeated JJ Ambrose via unanimous decision, and Lorenz Larkin got back in the win column against Fernando Gonzalez. Your man.
Wasn't it Larkin versus Ponzinibbio fight that was a game changer?
Yes, but Lorenz Larkin was still in the UFC at the time, and Santiago Ponzinibbio. And do you remember who was reffing that fight?
Not even a little bit.
Well, I will tell you who it was. It was Herb Dean, because Lorenz Larkin, I think it was like second or third round, stunned Santiago Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio is falling all over, trying to get away, and Lorenz Larkin is piling on bunches of punches, and Herb Dean let this. This is the fight, as I recall, that coined the phrase, #protect the fighter.
#let him fight.
So Lorenz Larkin found his way out of the UFC and over into Bellator, and one of his first fights, at least that we saw, was him facing Simplex Paul Daley, and Paul Daley knocked him out quite brutally, actually. So Lorenz Larkin was trying to find his way back into the win column against Fernando Gonzalez. You picked Fernando Gonzalez. And I picked Fernando Gonzalez, and we were wrong. So Lorenz Larkin's back in the win column. Congrats to him. We'll see what he can do in his next fight. Let's go on to Charlotte, North Carolina, where the UFC was going to fight night, facing off Jacare Souza. Yeah, I almost messed up. I almost said Jacare. Jacare Souza versus Derek Brunson. But let's get through all the...
Dennis the Menace.
Well, see, on the run sheet, Dennis Bermudez is right above Derek Brunson, and their initials are the same.
Fair enough. I'll give you that.
Thank you. All right, so Drew Dober defeated Frank Camacho via unanimous decision. This actually won Fight of the Night.
Well, when you're fighting Camacho, it's going to be, it's a presidential fight.
Oh, okay. Gregor Gillespie.
I'm totally bringing back that reference.
You know, I went back and listened to the show last week.
Terry Crews.
I went back and listened to the show last week, and it was funny because you're like, I have moved on. I'm going in there. You're like, idiocracy.
It's one of those moments where you say something and nothing else matters until you remember what it is.
So I'm glad you were able to come up with that one. Gregor Gillespie defeated Jordan Rinaldi via knockout in round 1. If you recall, last week you threw it in there. You were like, I got Gillespie just cause.
Because I'm just basically the Nostradamus of UFC.
So what happened with that Lorenz Larkin fight then?
I said UFC.
Oh, fair enough.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. Andre Touchy-Feely defeated Dennis Bermudez via split decision. Now, you and I had this different ways because I thought Dennis Bermudez was doing enough to win that fight.
The thing was, he countered really well, but I really felt that Feely kept his distance well enough that he was putting in enough shots where Dennis couldn't counter. So, not the best thing I've ever seen.
But, you know, it's pretty amazing to see the difference in size between Andre Feely and Dennis Bermudez. I mean, Feely was a much larger guy, much rangier, but Dennis Bermudez and his leg kicks were just doing some tremendous damage.
What I didn't understand is in the first round, how was it that Dennis Bermudez was connecting with Feely's chin so regularly? Like, seriously, get some distance.
Yeah, you know,
it made no sense.
Yeah, you know, I think he got his coaching in the corner in the second and third round because Feely was able to move around, use his reach, but Dennis Bermudez and those leg kicks, those were Jose Aldo-esque.
Yeah. And it needed to be because otherwise it would have been a very one-sided fight.
Yeah, so for those of you out there who don't know what I mean when I say Jose Aldo, you got to go and look for a fight. It's Jose Aldo versus Uriah Faber, and when you will see the leg kick used in a way that is completely debilitating. You know, another person who does tremendous leg kicks is Edson Barbosa. I mean, Edson Barbosa has, I think, 2 wins by leg kick.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Solid. And then finally in the main event, Ronaldo Souza, a.k.a. Jacare, defeated Derek Brunson via head kick destruction in the first round.
I wouldn't say it was head kick destruction. So Brunson still had a shot had he just added a little more separation between his hand and his head there, because when that shin wrapped around and caught him in the back of the head, he tried really hard to recover, but just couldn't.
Well, yeah.
But all around, great performance from Jacare, and I liked that there was so much activity in that first round.
Oh yeah, I mean, Derek Brunson was coming in. You know, at first they felt they felt each other out a little bit in the first half of the round, but then Derek Brunson just turned it on and started coming forward, throwing these big blows. Ronaldo Souza landed the head kick. He was really doing a good job rotating out of Derek Brunson's attacks, rotating out to the right, and as he was rotating out, throwing the counter hook. So he was landing on that side whenever he landed the head kick as well. It was a well executed fight for Souza, and I'm glad he's back in the win column as well. Puts him back in the mix.
There was a lot of action in this card, and I'm just going to throw this way off of script here. But a fight that I really enjoyed, just as a generic fight fan, not trying to break down anything, but what you look for in a fight is two people just going at it, that probably didn't get enough love, was in the lightweight division with Eric Koch versus Bobby Green. Yeah. Man, that was start to finish activity, and I loved that just from a generic fan standpoint. That's what you like to see out of fighting. It was a high-level fight, but with two people refusing to just give up and everyone willing to empty their gas tank there. So you see a lot of different shots thrown. You see some jiu-jitsu that's not the boring laying around and fighting for position. You see some great exchanges. It was just an all-around fun fight to watch.
So what you're saying is they gave 100%.
No, they gave 80%, but they gave 100% of the 80%. Math.
They gave 100% of their 80%. Is that what it is?
100%. It's like the cologne that works 60% of the time, 100% of the time. I believe there's a panther in the name of that.
Okay, all right, there it is. So that is the fight card. Let's close the book on this one because this one is history and go right into finding the angles.
Finding the Angles. angles.
This is Finding the Angles, where we discuss some of the top headlines making waves in the MMA world. So since this is an annotated show, we've only got just a couple of headlines that we want to talk about. The first one is Ronda Rousey joins the WWE full-time. I think it was last night she came out in full Ronda Rousey Hot Rod Rowdy Piper regalia and made her first appearance.
I did not love it. It was, not great.
So here's the thing for me. Number one, I just want to say that my favorite professional wrestler growing up was Rowdy Piper. I loved him, and he had like a little segment that he would do where he would interview people, and then eventually, he'd bring on, the good guys, and then he would ambush them. I forgot. It was called Piper's Pit. And so I was always a big fan. I used to have little Rowdy Piper figurines and action figures.
I was such a Sting fan. That face paint was legendary.
Okay, so here's the hard thing for me, and this is how I'm going to show my age. So Sting for me was WCW, right? It was the competing wrestling promotion. So Sting in the WWE, by that point I had kind of moved on, but Sting has always been the guy in the WCW fighting against the WWE and not being a part of it.
Fair enough.
But Ronda Rousey is now a professional wrestler. And let me explain to you why this, I think, is just awful. Because when you are an actual fighter, you fight and you win. And if you lose because the other person beat you. Once you get into the professional wrestling world, now you lose because there's a script writer in the back who decides that you lose. Ronda Rousey, we already know what her Olympic chops are. We know what she's done in the UFC. And there isn't a single girl in the WWE right now that could hold a candle to her. If she loses the fight between now and forever, it just lessens what she accomplished in the actual cage as opposed to the wrestling ring.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting that people are watching this for entertainment value and not for actual belief that Ronda is winning or losing.
It's not that. It's just
and the
it's
thing
about
is,
legacy.
Ronda's not at the top of her game. She might actually lose. I mean, we have seen her via head kick, via just total destruction. Like, she's not indestructible.
Right, but we've also seen her beat several professional fighters in less than 30 seconds. And so
that was back when no one knew how to defend judoka.
Yes, but now we're talking about scripted professional wrestling. And so now what we have to do is we've got to see Ronda Rousey run and bounce off of ropes and do flops and all that kind of stuff and take punches and all that kind of stuff when we know that all she's got to do is grab an arm and it's an arm bar and the game is over. Like, that's the thing for me, at least, watching from a distance over in MMA land, is just like, this is ridiculous now because it's so contrived and so fake because I know what she can actually do. And so
I don't know, because she's not the first one to cross over, because you look at Brock Lesnar, we all assume because he's a badass in WWE that he would transition here and do well within UFC, and he did all right till Overeem just exposed him.
But see, that's the thing, though, right? And Overeem wasn't the only one to expose him, because Cain Velasquez exposed him as well. But Brock Lesnar came from WWE to the UFC, and remember, he lost his first match to Frank Mir via ankle lock or heel hook. And so, it wasn't like he came over and was amazing, So to see a professional wrestler go over into the UFC world and not be successful is what we would expect. That is natural. Then for him to go and become a champion and then defend his title and then eventually lose it to Cain, those are things that we would expect to see in the MMA world. But when you go back now to WWE, it's like, well, we see what you can do. So now if you get punched and you've been hit by bigger, stronger guys like Shane Carwin and those guys, Alistair Overeem gave you a knee, it's like, if you're taking punches from little scrawny guys in the WWE, come on, man. We know what you can really do.
it's just like cheap. When you try to fight me, it's just it makes no sense that I would ever lose.
Wait, what?
I said what I said.
Yeah, I have to go back and play that again because the fact that you won't say it twice shows shows that you won't stand by your comments. Because I figure I know what vein it went in. Here's the thing, though: Ronda Rousey, she's got to get her career going because I think that MMA for her has passed her by. She hasn't retired, so this is just a segue to heal up her body in some ways. Whatever. She's got to keep her career going. There is nothing for her left at the UFC. She's not going to be able to beat Nunes. She's not going to beat Holly Holm. And there's girls coming up here in at 135 that I don't know that Ronda Rousey would be able to contend with. Juliana Pena. I mean, those girls. Okay, she's sure not going to move to 145 because that's where she has to face Cyborg. There's nothing for her anymore. So this is a good move for her. I just think that it's weak because we know that there's not any one of those women in WWE that could actually fight Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
Speaking of crossing over, Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic is now official July 7th, 2018 at International Fight Week. Daniel Cormier goes to be the next two-weight champion. Not the first, the next.
I hate this fight in principle because what it does is it exposes the fact that both divisions are really light as far as next fights for their champions. But I do like this because this does allow for the opportunity for Cormier to make a case for being the absolute, hands-down, greatest lightweight champion that they've had.
Well, the good thing about him making that case is that now that the fact that he's the best 206.5 pound champion in the world now means he's a heavyweight champion.
I can't hate on him like that. Here's why. Like John Jones, for all his potential, hasn't lived up to it. Whereas we have seen in fight after fight that Cormier shouldn't have had a chance, and he just finds a way. He bullies people who are bigger than him, and I am full on. I hate that I've jumped on so late in his career, but I am full on Team Cormier. Like I legitimately think he can beat Miocic.
Yeah, up until Miocic wins that fight. I don't think he will. Let me just go right here. I'm not officially making my pick, but Daniel Cormier has fought at heavyweight. He won the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix, beating the likes of Alistair Overeem and winning that title. So It's not like Daniel Cormier can't fight at heavyweight. He's just a bit undersized, given the fact that he's only like 5'0".
He's undersized, but again, his last fight, Ozdemir, you'd have thought that he would have been able to, Ozdemir would have been able to bully Daniel in the ring, but it just didn't happen. And so I don't see Miocic being able to do that either. And with the level of wrestling that Cormier brings to the ring, we saw that Miocic's wrestling is suspect at best.
Absolutely.
And his jiu-jitsu is just completely lacking altogether. So all Cormier has to do is take this fight to the ground, and he's got this in the bag. But even if he has to stand and bang, Cormier has shown that he can stand and bang with the biggest.
So, yeah, I'm not going to dispute that. I absolutely think that the way to victory is Cormier taking this fight to the ground, gassing out Stipe Miocic. It's the way he really wins all the fights, and then choking them out or putting them in some type of crucifix and then punch them in the forehead. I think Daniel Cormier has every chance to win this fight and become, the baddest man in two categories. Here's the question, though. What does he do with the light heavyweight belt? I mean, because now he's heavyweight champion.
Gives it over to Cain. So there is talk that Cain Velasquez, should Cormier win this, will drop down to light heavyweight, which I love the camaraderie and the level of just team love that's shown there. That Cormier has shown deference to Cain for all these many years at fighting at light heavyweight, and that Cain would reciprocate by not challenging that heavyweight title.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. Daniel Cormier is the light heavyweight champion, too.
Okay, so
I mean,
you just give them both.
What's Cain gonna do?
Retiring anyway.
Yeah, Cormier's said he's got about a year left. He's gonna be 39 this year. He said he wants to stop fighting at 40. So if Cain goes to lightweight, Daniel Cormier, I guess, gives up the lightweight belt. He relinquishes that and lets Cain fight for it.
That would be interesting. I mean, wouldn't it be cool to see Cain run the light heavyweight division? So we've seen what he can do around the heavyweights, and we do need a change of pace in both divisions. I think that'd be a very welcome change of pace. Problem will be, as he gets older, is that weight cut sustainable?
Well, Cain Velasquez isn't that big of a heavyweight. I mean, he was always 230,
We're about
240
the same size. I appreciate that.
So yeah, it never struck me that he had to lose just a whole lot of weight in order to make it to light heavyweight. But it's not like Francis Ngannou has to cut to make heavyweight. So maybe Cain could do the light heavyweight. I just think that when you look at someone who became the champion after the belt was relinquished, there's always that talk that, well, you never truly beat the champion. And just because the champion is on your team, I think that's what they, I think that you at some point need to be able to close that door on that story. Is if Daniel Cormier gives up light heavyweight and Cain goes in there and you're going to say, well, Cain never beat Daniel Cormier, so he beat what was left in that division. He never beat the champ. Just like Daniel Cormier never truly beat the champ.
I think at this point, with all of the steroids
not that
talk,
it matters.
Yeah, the steroids talk has completely ruined this notion of did you beat the champ? Because if the champ couldn't fight clean to beat you, then there's no case to be made.
Yeah, but the champ fought clean the first time. Like John Jones beat him clean the first time.
Well, was he clean or was he on coke?
Well, he was not caught the first time. So the fact is that Daniel Cormier never beat John Jones. So people were like, well, you're not really the champ. I don't feel that way. I think Daniel Cormier is the champ. But if Daniel Cormier says, okay, now that I'm defeated, and I like the way that we're talking about Daniel Cormier as though winning the heavyweight championship is just academic.
A foregone conclusion. Yeah, I believe it is.
So now that Daniel Cormier is the heavyweight champion, in July, if he gives up the belt and Cain goes to light heavyweight and starts fighting and wins the belt at light heavyweight, he didn't have to beat Daniel Cormier. There's a gap. There's a hole.
But if you look at it the other way, it's just as big of a problem. So he beats, let's say he beats Miocic. He gives up the heavyweight title and remains just the king of light heavyweight. So what you've done is you've displaced a champ, and now you have to create an interim title, interim championship. Like, what's the point of displacing Miocic and then just leaving it?
Ask Michael Bisping that question.
All right.
Because, that's what happened at middleweight, right? Is Michael Bisping had to fight George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre beats him and then says, I'm done. I'm not going to defend this belt. And so you ended up giving the interim champion the full title, who now is still in the hospital with staph infection. Now you're fighting for another interim title. So
who becomes interim? What's the interim title look like at the heavyweight? Do you give Miocic a chance with the next runner up?
I feel like if Daniel Cormier beat Stipe Miocic, then instantly gave up the belt, you'd have to have Stipe Miocic in there because, of course, he is the greatest heavyweight of all time, having defended the belt 3 times successfully. And you would have to have somebody step up to fight for that belt. Now, personally, for me, I think that you would have to have Cain Velasquez versus Francis Ngannou for the right to fight for the belt, which I wouldn't mind that. But what about Fabricio Verdum?
You don't think Cain needs a fight before Francis?
I think Francis is the fight for Cain. Because you either, if Cain comes back, then you either have to have Cain versus Fabricio Verdum in a rematch, or you have Cain versus Francis Ngannou.
I like his chances against Ngannou versus Verdum because I think Verdum is the next he's coming back for that belt.
I think so too. So we'll have to see. Anything else, sir?
Paige Van Zandt is engaged. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Which is, there you go.
News.
Which is news. All right. Well, that's it for our show. Follow us on social media. On Twitter, I'm at CST Ryan.
And I am at CST_KC.
You can check out the website at combatsportstalk.com. And you can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook, and Instagram. Be sure to like our Facebook page. We are now over 10,000 followers on Facebook. That is awesome.
Thank you, guys. That is all you. We appreciate it. Feel free to leave us comments so that we know how we can serve you guys better.
All right. And with that, our theme music is composed by Scott McCurry at scottdeancountry.com. Casey Onyebuchi produced our lead-ins. I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Combat Sports Talk. For Casey Onyebuchi, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs.